The champagne glass felt like lead in my hand as I watched my wife Sienna hold court in the center of the hotel ballroom. She was in her element, designer dress clinging to her perfect figure, diamond earrings catching the light, surrounded by admirers hanging on her every word like she was dispensing legal wisdom instead of gossip. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. You know what my biggest mistake was? Sienna's voice carried across the room. That practiced lawyer tone that could charm a jury or cut down an opponent. Thinking I could fix a broken marriage. Some things are just trash, and you can't polish trash. The circle of our so-called friends erupted in laughter. Brent Calloway, her law firm partner, stood a little too close, his hand resting on the small of her back. Lila Martinez, Sienna's college roommate turned Instagram influencer, practically cackled as she held up her phone to record the moment. Even Zack Thompson, who'd been my friend since high school before he got seduced by Sienna's social circle, was grinning like an idiot. I mean, seriously, Sienna continued, gesturing with her wine glass. I need a new marriage. This one's trash, and I'm tired of pretending otherwise. The words hit me like a punch to the gut, but I'd been expecting this for months, maybe years. I'd watched my wife transform from the ambitious law student I'd married into this polished, cold creature who treated our marriage like a business arrangement that had stopped being profitable. I pushed through the crowd, my work boots clicking against the marble floor. These people always looked at me like I was something they'd stepped in, the blue-collar mechanic who somehow landed the beautiful lawyer. Well, tonight they were about to get a show. Sienna, I said, my voice cutting through the laughter. She turned, her perfectly applied makeup unable to hide the flash of annoyance in her eyes. Eli, darling, I heard what you were saying. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out the manila envelope I'd been carrying for 3 weeks. And you know what? Glad we finally agree. The laughter died as I handed her the divorce papers, already signed on my end. The crowd pressed closer, phones appearing like vultures sensing roadkill. Sienna's face went through a series of expressions. Shock, embarrassment, then that calculating look I knew so well. Oh, honey, she said, forcing a laugh. You're being dramatic. It was just a joke. Funny thing about jokes, I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. They're supposed to be funny. This is just honest. Brent stepped forward, all 6 feet of entitled privilege in a $1,000 suit. Now hold on there, Eli. Maybe I should what, Brent? I turned to face him, noting how his hand was still possessively placed on my wife's back. Maybe I should pretend I don't see what's right in front of me. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Conversations at other tables had stopped, heads turning to watch the drama unfold. Sienna's face was flushed now, whether from embarrassment or anger, I couldn't tell. You're making a scene, she hissed. No, sweetheart. You made the scene. I'm just changing the channel. I turned to walk away, but Margo Henderson, the one person in this room who'd stayed real over the years, caught my arm. She ran a dive bar down by the Marina, the kind of place where people told the truth instead of playing social games. Eli, she said quietly, we need to talk. There's stuff you don't know. I looked back at Sienna, who was already surrounded by her friends, damage control in full swing. Lila was whispering urgently in her ear while Brent played the protective colleague, his arm now openly around her shoulders. Yeah, I said to Margo. I'm starting to figure that out. As I walked toward the exit, I heard Sienna's voice rise above the whispers. He'll be back. He always comes back. Not this time, I thought. This time the trash was taking itself out. But first, I was going to make sure everyone knew exactly what kind of trash they'd been celebrating. The next morning, I woke up in my garage office, surrounded by the familiar smell of motor oil and the honest sounds of work being done. My employee Vick was already under the hood of a Chevy Suburban, cursing creatively at a stubborn alternator. Boss, he called out when he heard me stirring. You look like hell. That fancy party didn't go so good? Vick was 25, built like a linebacker, and had the kind of street smarts that came from growing up in the rough part of town. He was also the most loyal person I knew, which was more than I could say for most of my so-called friends. You could say that? I poured coffee from the pot that had been brewing since 5 a.m. How do you feel about a little detective work? His head popped up from under the hood, grease streaking his face. What kind of detective work? The kind that involves finding out just how long my wife's been making a fool of me. Vick grinned, the kind of expression that had gotten him in trouble with the law more than once before he'd straightened out. Now you're talking my language. Before I could explain further, my phone buzzed with a text from Mrs. Firth, my 78-year-old neighbor who spent most of her time on her front porch watching the world go by. The woman missed nothing. That fancy lawyer car is in your driveway again. Thought you should know. I showed the message to Vick, who whistled low. She's got some balls showing up after last night. Let her wait. I'd changed the locks at 3 a.m., using skills I'd picked up during my brief stint as a locksmith before I'd opened the garage. We've got work to do. The first stop was Sienna's gym bag, which she'd left in our bedroom in her hurry to get ready for the party. I'd always respected her privacy before, but last night had changed the rules. Way down in the bottom, underneath her designer workout clothes, I found what I was looking for. A second phone. Burner phone, Vick said, examining it. Classy. The phone wasn't password protected. Apparently Sienna thought she was smarter than she actually was. The text history was a goldmine of evidence. Months of messages with Brent, talking about weekend trips they'd taken while I was working, photos that made my stomach turn, and worse, conversations about me. He's so pathetic, one message read. Still thinks we're happy. I'll milk this for another year, then take him for everything in the divorce. At least you'll get good alimony, Brent had replied. Guy's business is doing better than he lets on. There were other names in the phone, too. David Chen from the country club, Marcus Webb from her law school alumni group. Even a few messages with Zack, my former best friend, talking about weekend trips to his cabin upstate. Jesus, Eli, Vick said, reading over my shoulder. How long has this been going on? Longer than I want to think about. I scrolled through more messages, each one a knife twist. But now I know exactly what I'm dealing with. My phone rang, Sienna calling from the driveway. I let it go to voicemail, then played it back on speaker. Eli, stop being childish and let me in. We need to talk about last night. I was drinking, you know how I get. Just open the door and we can work this out like adults. Vick snorted. Adults don't usually need burner phones. The second call came an hour later, and this time her tone had changed. I know you're in there, Eli. This is my house too, and I have rights. You can't just lock me out. Actually, I said to the phone, I can, especially when I've got proof you've been planning to screw me over for months. The third call was Brent, trying to sound reasonable and professional. Eli, this is Brent Calloway. I think there's been a misunderstanding. Sienna is very upset, and I think if we could all sit down and talk. I picked up the phone. Brent, I said, thanks for calling. Saves me the trouble of tracking you down. Look, Eli, whatever you think you know, I know you've been sleeping with my wife for 8 months. I know about the weekend in Martha's Vineyard. I know about the hotel room you booked last Tuesday afternoon. I know she's been feeding you information about my business so you could help her plan the divorce. The silence on the other end was deafening. I also know, I continued, that you think I'm some dumb grease monkey who won't fight back. That's where you're wrong, counselor. Now wait just a minute. No, you wait. You and Sienna want to play games? Fine. But you're playing in my league now, and I know this town a hell of a lot better than either of you. I hung up and turned to Vick, who was grinning like Christmas morning. So what's the plan, boss? First, we pay a visit to Margo. She said she had information I needed to hear. Then we start returning some favors. Margo's bar, the Anchor, sat on the waterfront like it had grown out of the pier itself. The building was older than both of us, with weathered wood siding and windows that had seen everything from nor'easters to drug deals to broken hearts. It was the kind of place where people told the truth, mostly because everyone was too tired or too drunk to lie. Margo was behind the bar when we walked in, polishing glasses with the methodical precision of someone who'd been doing the job for 20 years. She looked up when she heard the door, her sharp eyes taking in my appearance. You look like a man who's had his world turned upside down, she said. More like right side up for the first time in years. I slid onto a bar stool, Vick taking the one beside me. You said there were things I needed to know. She poured 3 shots of bourbon, the good stuff she kept under the bar for special occasions. This qualifies as a special occasion, I figure. The day Eli Porter finally woke up. How long have you known? About Sienna screwing around? Hell, Eli, everyone's known for years. The question was whether you were going to keep pretending you didn't see it. The bourbon burned going down, but it was nothing compared to the burn of humiliation. Everyone knew? Not everyone, Vick said loyally. I didn't know. That's because you're not part of their social circle, Margo said. The country club crowd, the lawyer parties, the charity events, that's where the real gossip happens. And honey, your wife has been the subject of a lot of gossip. She reached under the bar and pulled out a manila folder, thick with papers and photographs. I've been collecting this for months, ever since I realized what was happening. Call it insurance or call it friendship. Either way, you're going to want to see it. The folder contained everything. Credit card receipts from hotels where Sienna had stayed with various men while I was out of town, photos from social media showing her at events with different dates, always with some excuse about why I couldn't attend, screenshots of conversations from Facebook groups where she'd complained about being stuck with a blue-collar husband. "This one's my favorite," Margo said, pointing to a printout of a post from Lila's Instagram. It showed Sienna and Brent at some upscale restaurant, tagged as "Date night with my work husband. Some women have all the luck." The comments were even worse. Friends of ours, people I'd known for years, making jokes about Sienna's extracurricular activities, and how poor Eli was too busy working to notice what was happening in his own marriage. "Son of a bitch," Vick muttered. "They were all laughing at you." "Not all of them," Margo said. "Some of us were just waiting for you to open your eyes." My phone buzzed with another call from Sienna. This time I answered. "What do you want?" "I want to come home, Eli. I want to talk about this like rational adults." Rational adults don't keep burner phones full of naked pictures of their lovers. The sharp intake of breath told me I'd scored a hit. "You went through my things?" "Your things? Sweetheart, you left your bag in our bedroom, in the house that I pay for, with the phone that you've been using to plan my financial destruction." "Eli, you don't understand." "I understand perfectly. I understand that you've been playing me for a fool for years. I understand that half the town knows about your affairs. I understand that you and your boyfriend have been planning to take me for everything I'm worth. That's not... Here's what's going to happen, Sienna. You're going to find somewhere else to stay. You're going to have your lawyer contact my lawyer, and you're going to stop pretending this is some kind of misunderstanding. You can't do this. Watch me." I hung up and looked at Margo, who was nodding approvingly. "About damn time," she said. "So what's your next move?" "I'm going to remind this town that the quiet guy in the corner isn't always the pushover they think he is." The bar door opened, and Zack Thompson walked in, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. He spotted us at the bar and hesitated, probably debating whether to turn around and leave. Well, I said, "if it isn't my old friend Zack." He approached slowly, hands in his pockets. "Eli, look, about last night." "About last night? Or about the last 2 years of weekend trips to your cabin with my wife?" His face went white. "How did you find out? Maybe because she kept all your text messages on her burner phone. Maybe because she took pictures of your bedroom. Maybe because she's not as smart as she thinks she is." Zack looked around the bar nervously, noting the other patrons who were now listening with interest. "Can we talk about this somewhere private?" "Why? Embarrassed? Funny how that works, isn't it? You were happy enough to laugh at me in public last night." "I never meant for it to happen, Eli. It just..." "Just what? Just happened? You just accidentally started sleeping with your best friend's wife? You just accidentally lied to my face for 2 years?" Vick stood up from his bar stool, all 6 feet 4 inches of barely controlled violence. "Maybe we should take this outside." "No," I said, putting a hand on his arm. "This is perfect right here. Let everyone hear what kind of friend Zack Thompson really is." The bar had gone quiet now, everyone watching the drama unfold. Zack's face was red with embarrassment and anger. "You want to do this here? Fine. You want to know the truth, Eli? Sienna came to me. She was lonely, neglected, married to a guy who cared more about fixing cars than fixing his marriage." "Is that what she told you?" "She didn't have to tell me anything. I could see it. We all could. You were so wrapped up in your garage, your business, your blue-collar pride, that you couldn't see your wife was dying inside." The words stung, because there was just enough truth in them to hurt. I had been working long hours, building the business, trying to provide the kind of life I thought Sienna wanted. "So, you decided to help her feel better?" "I decided to be there for her when her husband wasn't. How noble of you." I stood up, facing him directly. "Tell me, Zack, when you were being there for her, did she mention that she was planning to divorce me and take half my business? Did she mention that she was collecting information about my finances to use against me?" His expression faltered. "What are you talking about?" I pulled out my phone and scrolled to one of Sienna's text conversations with Brent. "She was using you, Zack, just like she was using me. The only difference is, you were stupid enough to think it meant something." I read from the phone. "Zack is so pathetic. Thinks we have some great romance. At least he's useful for information about Eli's friends. When this is over, I'll have to figure out how to get rid of him without causing drama." The blood drained from Zack's face as I continued reading. "He's not bad in bed, but he's not exactly long-term material. Too needy, too emotional. Brent is much more my type." The bar was dead silent now. Zack stood there, looking like he'd been punched in the gut. She played all of us, I said quietly. The difference is, I'm done being played. Zack turned and walked out without another word, leaving me standing at the bar with a room full of witnesses and a growing sense that this was just the beginning. Well, Margo said, refilling my glass, that was educational. That was just the warm-up, I replied. Word traveled fast in a town like ours, especially when it involved scandal, betrayal, and public humiliation. By the next morning, my phone was buzzing with calls and texts from people I hadn't heard from in months, all suddenly interested in my personal life. Some were genuine offers of support. Others were obvious fishing expeditions, people looking for gossip to spread at their next social gathering. I ignored most of them and focused on the business of dismantling the life Sienna had built on lies. The first step was financial. I'd been paying for her gym membership, her spa treatments, her shopping sprees, even her car payment, all while she was planning to take me for everything I was worth in a divorce. That ended immediately. The second step was social. Sienna's power came from her reputation, her connections, her carefully cultivated image as the successful lawyer with the perfect life. Time to show everyone what that perfect life really looked like. I was under the hood of a Ford Explorer when Brent Calloway showed up at my garage. He was trying to look casual in khakis and a polo shirt, but everything about him screamed expensive lawyer slumming it with the working class. "We need to talk," he said. I didn't look up from the engine. "No, we don't. This situation has gotten out of hand. Sienna is very upset." "I bet she is." I straightened up, wiping my hands on a rag. Probably upset that her meal ticket found out about her side business. Brent's jaw tightened. "That's not fair, and you know it." "Fair?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You want to talk about fair. Is it fair that my wife has been screwing half the town while I've been working 60-hour weeks to pay for her lifestyle? Is it fair that you've been helping her plan to steal my business? Is it fair that people I trusted have been laughing at me behind my back for years?" "Nobody was laughing at you." "Bullshit." I tossed the rag aside and faced him directly. "I've seen the text messages, Brent. I've seen the photos. I know about the hotel rooms, the weekend trips, the whole elaborate lie you two have been living." He tried to recover his lawyer composure. "Whatever you think you know, I know enough. I know that you're a partner in a law firm that takes a very dim view of ethical violations. I know that sleeping with clients' wives while helping them plan divorces is the kind of thing that gets you disbarred." His face went pale. "You wouldn't." "Try me." We stood there for a moment, sizing each other up. Brent was taller, better dressed, probably better educated. But I was angrier, and anger is a hell of a motivator. "Look," he said, trying a different approach. "Maybe we can work something out. Sienna cares about you. She really does. This whole thing just got complicated." "Complicated? Is that what you call it when you're fucking another man's wife?" "There's no need for crude language." I stepped closer, close enough that he had to look up slightly to meet my eyes. "There's every need. See, Brent, you've been living in a world where everything is polite and civilized and handled through proper channels, but you made one mistake." "What's that?" "You messed with someone who doesn't give a damn about being polite." That's when Vick emerged from the office, carrying a tire iron and looking like he was hoping for an excuse to use it. "Everything okay out here, boss?" "Just fine, Vick. Mr. Calloway was just leaving." Brent looked between us, calculating odds he probably didn't like. "This isn't over, Eli." "No, it's not, but it's going to end exactly the way I want it to." After he left, Vick shook his head. "That guy's got some balls coming here. He's desperate. Sienna probably sent him to try to smooth things over, keep me from making waves." "You gonna make waves?" I grinned. "Vick, I'm going to make a tsunami." That afternoon, I drove over to Lila Martinez's apartment. She lived in one of those trendy, converted warehouse buildings downtown, the kind of place that cost twice what it was worth, but came with the right zip code for her social media image. She answered the door in yoga pants and a crop top, phone in hand, like always. Her expression shifted from surprise to wariness when she saw me. "Eli? What are you doing here?" "We need to talk, Lila." "I don't think that's a good idea. Sienna said you're being really unstable right now." "Sienna says a lot of things. Most of them lies." I held up a printout of her Instagram post about Sienna and Brent's date night. "Like this post. Pretty interesting caption." Her face flushed. "That was just a joke." "Funny joke. Almost like you were rubbing it in my face that my wife was cheating on me." "I wasn't." "You weren't what? You weren't helping her cover up her affairs? You weren't posting pictures designed to humiliate me? You weren't part of the whole elaborate scheme to make me look like a fool?" She tried to close the door, but I put my hand against it. Not aggressively, just firmly. We're not done talking, Lila. I'm calling the police. Go ahead. I'd love to explain to them about your role in this whole situation. I'm sure they'd be very interested in the text messages where you helped Sienna coordinate her alibis. That stopped her cold. What text messages? I pulled out my phone and started reading. Here's a good one. Tell Eli you and I went shopping if he asks about Saturday. Brent and I need the whole afternoon. Or how about this one? Can you post something about girls' night? Need to cover for the weekend at Martha's Vineyard. Those were just what? Just you helping your friend destroy her marriage? Just you making me look like an idiot who couldn't keep track of his own wife? Lila looked around nervously, probably hoping one of her neighbors would intervene. No such luck. What do you want, Eli? I want the truth. I want you to admit that you've been helping Sienna cheat on me for years. I want you to admit that you've all been laughing at me behind my back. It wasn't like that. What was it like? She was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. Sienna was unhappy, okay? She felt trapped, ignored. She just wanted some excitement in her life. So you helped her find it in other men's beds. I helped her feel alive again. You helped her destroy our marriage. Your marriage was already dead, Eli. You just didn't want to see it. The words hit like a slap, but I'd been expecting them. It was the same line they'd all been feeding themselves, the justification that made their betrayal seem reasonable. Maybe it was, I said. But that was our business, not yours. You didn't have the right to interfere. I was being a good friend. You were being a home wrecker. There's a difference. I turned to leave, then stopped. Oh, and Lila, you might want to be careful about what you post on social media from now on. People are watching. As I walked back to my truck, I could hear her sobbing behind the closed door. Part of me felt bad about making her cry, but a bigger part of me felt like justice was finally being served. The last stop was the hardest one. I drove to the law firm where Sienna worked, a gleaming glass tower downtown that screamed success and respectability. I'd been there before, of course, for office parties and firm events, always feeling out of place among the suits and diplomas. Today, I belonged there as much as anyone. The receptionist, a young woman named Amy, who'd always been friendly to me, looked surprised when I walked in. Mr. Porter, are you here to see Sienna? Actually, I'm here to see Mr. Harrison. James Harrison was the senior partner, a man in his 60s who'd built the firm from nothing and had very strong opinions about professional conduct. He was also someone who valued honesty and straight talk, qualities that had made our few conversations surprisingly pleasant. Is he expecting you? No, but I think he'll want to see me. Amy made the call, and 5 minutes later I was sitting in Harrison's corner office, surrounded by law books and awards that represented a lifetime of legal achievement. Eli, he said, shaking my hand, I have to say, this is unexpected. What can I do for you? I placed Sienna's burner phone on his desk, along with printouts of the most damaging text messages. I think you need to see this, Mr. Harrison. It concerns 2 of your partners and some serious ethical violations. He picked up the phone, scrolling through the messages with increasing concern. His face grew darker as he read about the affairs, the planned divorce strategy, the use of confidential information. Where did you get this? My wife left it in our bedroom. Apparently she thought she was smarter than she actually was. He continued reading, his expression growing more troubled. This is very serious, Eli. If these allegations are true, they're true. I have witnesses, documentation, credit card records. Your partners have been conducting an affair while collaborating on legal strategy against me. I'm pretty sure that violates several rules of professional conduct. Harrison set down the phone and leaned back in his chair. What do you want me to do about this? I want justice, Mr. Harrison. I want them held accountable for what they've done. And if I don't? Then I take this to the State Bar Association, the local newspaper, and anyone else who'll listen. Your firm's reputation gets dragged through the mud along with theirs. He nodded slowly. I appreciate you bringing this to me first, Eli. Give me 24 hours to handle this internally. 24 hours, I agreed. After that, all bets are off. As I left the building, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. The satisfaction of fighting back. For too long, I'd been the nice guy, the accommodating husband, the man who kept his head down and his mouth shut. Those days were over. The next 24 hours passed like the calm before a hurricane. I went about my normal routine, working on cars, managing the garage, dealing with customers, but underneath the surface, I was waiting for the storm to hit. It started with a phone call from Sienna at exactly 9:17 a.m. You bastard, she said without preamble. You absolute bastard. Good morning to you too, sweetheart. Don't you dare call me that. Do you have any idea what you've done? I have a pretty good idea. Why don't you enlighten me? Harrison called an emergency meeting. Brent's been suspended pending investigation. They're talking about firing both of us. Sounds like they take professional ethics seriously. Who knew? This is my career, Eli. This is everything I've worked for. Funny thing about careers built on lies and betrayal, they tend to collapse when the truth comes out. She was crying now, but I felt no sympathy. These were tears of self-pity, not remorse. I can fix this, she said. I can make this right. Just tell Harrison you made it all up, that you were angry and vindictive. Can't do that, Sienna. Why not? Because it would be a lie, and unlike some people, I try to tell the truth. Please, Eli, I'm begging you. I'll do anything. Anything? How about a time machine? Can you go back and not cheat on me for 2 years? Can you go back and not plan to steal my business? Can you go back and not make me a laughingstock in front of the entire town? I never meant for any of this to happen. You meant all of it. You just didn't mean to get caught. I hung up and went back to work, but the calls kept coming. Brent trying to negotiate, Lila crying and apologizing, even Zack wanting to clear the air. I ignored them all. The real fireworks started that evening. I was closing up the garage when a black BMW pulled into the parking lot. 3 men got out, and I recognized them immediately. Brent's older brother Derek, a real estate developer with a reputation for playing hardball, and 2 guys who looked like they'd stepped out of a mob movie. Eli Porter, Derek called out as they approached. That's me. We need to talk. Vick emerged from the office, taking in the situation with the quick assessment of someone who'd grown up in rough neighborhoods. Everything okay, boss? Just fine, Vick. These gentlemen were just leaving. Derek smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. I don't think you understand the situation, Mr. Porter. My brother's career is on the line because of your vindictive bullshit. Your brother's career is on the line because he couldn't keep his dick in his pants. That's crude, but accurate. Derek stepped closer, flanked by his 2 companions. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to call Harrison and tell him you made everything up. You're going to withdraw your complaint and apologize for the misunderstanding. Or what? Or things get unpleasant for you. I looked at the 3 men, calculating odds and options. Derek was soft, a rich boy who'd probably never been in a real fight in his life. His companions were another story, professional muscle, the kind of guys who solve problems with violence. You know what, Derek? I don't think I'm going to do that. Then you're making a mistake. I've made plenty of mistakes. Trusting your brother and my wife was a big one, but standing up for myself? That's not a mistake. One of Derek's companions cracked his knuckles, a sound that echoed in the quiet parking lot. Maybe we should help him understand the situation better. That's when Vick stepped forward, holding a tire iron in one hand and his phone in the other. Funny thing about security cameras, he said, pointing to the devices mounted around the garage. They record everything, audio and video. So if you gentlemen are thinking about making threats or getting physical, you might want to reconsider. Derek looked around, noticing the cameras for the first time. His expression shifted from confident to uncertain. This isn't over, he said. Yeah, it is, I replied. Because if you or your brother or anyone else tries to intimidate me, that footage goes straight to the police. And I'm pretty sure threatening witnesses in an ethics investigation is a felony. They left without another word, but I knew this was far from finished. Desperate people do desperate things, and I just made some very powerful people very desperate. Think they'll be back? Vick asked. Count on it. But next time, we'll be ready. The next morning brought news that Sienna and Brent had both been fired from the law firm. Harrison had moved quickly once he'd reviewed the evidence, deciding that the potential damage to the firm's reputation outweighed any loyalty to his partners. By noon, the story had leaked to the local newspaper. By evening, it was all over social media. Sienna's carefully constructed image was crumbling in real time, and she was panicking. She showed up at the garage just as I was locking up, looking haggard and desperate. Gone was the polished lawyer, replaced by a woman who looked like she hadn't slept in days. We need to talk, she said. No, we don't. Eli, please. 5 minutes. Against my better judgment, I let her inside. She looked around the garage like she was seeing it for the first time, taking in the tools, the lifts, the honest work that had paid for her lifestyle. I'm sorry, she said quietly. For which part? The cheating? The lying? The planning to steal my business? The making me look like a fool in front of everyone we know? For all of it. I know you won't believe me, but I never wanted to hurt you. You just wanted to use me. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that, Sienna. I was the stable husband who paid the bills while you played around with more exciting men. I was the backup plan while you looked for something better. She was crying again, but this time it seemed genuine. I don't know how it got so complicated. I loved you once. Once, past tense. I could love you again. We could start over. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw not the woman I'd married, but a stranger who'd worn her face while destroying everything we'd built together. No, we can't. Some things can't be fixed, Sienna. Some betrayals are too deep. So what happens now? Now you figure out how to rebuild your life without me, just like I'm figuring out how to rebuild mine without you. She left without another word, and I watched her drive away, feeling something I hadn't expected. Relief. The marriage was over, the truth was out, and for the first time in years, I knew exactly where I stood. But I wasn't done yet. There was still one more score to settle. The confrontation I'd been expecting came 3 days later, but not in the way I'd anticipated. Instead of Derek and his muscle showing up at my garage, I got a call from Detective Ray Martinez. No relation to Lila, despite the shared name. Eli, we need to talk. Can you come down to the station? Am I under arrest? Not yet, but there's been some allegations made, and I need to hear your side. I knew this was coming. When you back powerful people into a corner, they use whatever weapons they have available. In this case, that meant trying to turn me from the victim into the perpetrator. At the police station, Detective Martinez led me to an interview room that smelled of stale coffee and broken dreams. He was a good cop, someone I'd known casually for years, and I could see he wasn't comfortable with the situation. What are the allegations? I asked. Harassment, stalking, making threats. Your wife filed a complaint yesterday. My soon-to-be ex-wife, you mean? Eli, I've known you for a long time. This doesn't sound like you, but I have to ask. Have you been following Sienna? Making threatening phone calls? Intimidating her friends? I pulled out my phone and showed him the call log. Every conversation I've had with Sienna has been recorded. Every interaction with her friends has been witnessed. I've got security footage from my garage, receipts showing where I've been, and about a dozen people who can account for my whereabouts. Martinez looked relieved. I figured as much, but I had to ask. What about the threats Brent Calloway made against me? The intimidation attempt in my parking lot? Did she mention that in her complaint? What threats? I pulled out my own phone and played the security footage from the garage. Martinez watched Derek and his companions make their threats, his expression growing darker. Son of a bitch, he muttered. They're trying to flip the script on you. Desperate people do desperate things. You want to file a complaint? Not yet. But I want that footage on record, just in case. As I left the police station, I realized that Sienna and her allies were more dangerous than I'd thought. They weren't just trying to salvage their reputations. They were actively trying to destroy mine. Time to end this, once and for all. The opportunity came sooner than I expected. Margo called me that evening with information that changed everything. You need to get down to the Marina, she said, now. What's happening? Brent and Sienna are trying to leave town. They've loaded up his yacht with suitcases and boxes. Looks like they're planning to disappear. I grabbed Vick and we raced to the Marina, arriving just as Brent was untying the yacht from its slip. Sienna was on deck, still looking haggard, but with a desperate determination in her eyes. Going somewhere? I called out. Brent looked up, his face flushing with anger. This is harassment, Eli. We're calling the police. Go ahead. I'm sure they'd love to know that you're fleeing town right before your ethics hearing. We're not fleeing. We're taking a vacation. With all your worldly possessions? That's a hell of a vacation. Sienna stepped forward. We don't owe you any explanations. Maybe not. But you owe explanations to a lot of other people. The State Bar Association, for instance. The IRS, who might be interested in those cash payments you've been hiding. The divorce court, who'll want to know about all the assets you're trying to move offshore. Brent's face went white. You don't know what you're talking about. I know more than you think. See, when you destroy someone's life, they tend to get motivated to learn things. Like how you've been moving money through shell corporations. Like how Sienna's been hiding assets in preparation for the divorce. Like how both of you have been planning this escape for months. The crowd was gathering now. Other boat owners, Marina staff, people who'd been drawn by the commotion. Phones were coming out, recording everything. This is all lies, Sienna said, but her voice lacked conviction. Is it? Then why are you running? Why not stay and fight the charges? Why not prove your innocence? Brent made a decision then, one that proved how desperate he really was. He lunged toward me, probably thinking he could intimidate me into backing down. He was wrong. I'd been in plenty of fights in my younger days, and I'd stayed in shape working in the garage. Brent, for all his expensive suits and gym memberships, was soft. When he swung at me, I ducked under his punch and drove my fist into his solar plexus. He went down hard, gasping for breath on the dock while the crowd watched and recorded. Sienna screamed, but she didn't move to help him. "Stay down," I told Brent. "This doesn't have to get any worse." But he was beyond reason now, driven by panic and humiliation. He scrambled to his feet and came at me again, this time with a boat hook he'd grabbed from the yacht. That's when Vick stepped in. The boat hook went flying into the harbor, and Brent found himself face to face with 6 feet 4 inches of barely controlled violence. The fight went out of him immediately. "I think we're done here," I said, looking around at the crowd of witnesses. "Unless anyone else wants to take a swing at me." The police arrived 10 minutes later. Someone in the crowd had called them. But instead of arresting me, they arrested Brent for assault with a weapon. The whole thing had been recorded from multiple angles, making it clear who the aggressor was. As they led Brent away in handcuffs, Sienna finally broke down completely. All the composure, all the calculation, all the manipulation, it all crumbled at once. "This is all your fault," she sobbed. "We could have worked this out quietly. We could have been civilized about it." "Civilized?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You want to talk about civilized? Civilized is not cheating on your spouse. Civilized is not planning to steal their business. Civilized is not making them a laughingstock in their own town. I never meant for it to go this far. You meant every bit of it. You just didn't mean to get caught." The crowd was dispersing now, but I knew the videos would be online within hours. By tomorrow, everyone in town would know exactly what had happened at the Marina. "What happens now?" Sienna asked. "Now you face the consequences of your choices, just like the rest of us." I turned to leave, but she grabbed my arm. "Eli, wait. Please. Can't we find some way to fix this?" I looked at her one last time. The woman I'd married, the woman I'd loved, the woman who'd destroyed everything we'd built together. "Some things can't be fixed, Sienna. Some things are just trash." I walked away, leaving her standing alone on the dock, surrounded by the wreckage of the life she'd tried to build on lies and betrayal. As Vick and I drove back to the garage, he shook his head in amazement. "Boss, that was something else. You think it's really over?" "Yeah, Vick, I think it's finally over." And for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe again. 6 months later, the divorce was final. Sienna had tried to fight it, but the evidence was overwhelming. She got nothing. No alimony, no share of the business, no assets beyond what she'd brought into the marriage. Brent was disbarred and facing criminal charges. Derek Calloway was under investigation for witness intimidation. The whole corrupt network that had been laughing at me behind my back was in ruins. As for me, I rebuilt my life from the ground up, surrounded by people who actually gave a damn about honesty and loyalty. The garage was busier than ever. Apparently, there's something to be said for a reputation for fighting back against bullies. I never saw Sienna again after that day at the Marina. I heard she left town, started over somewhere else under a different name. I hoped she learned something from the experience, but I doubted it. Some people never change. They just find new victims. But I wasn't a victim anymore. I was a survivor, a fighter, a man who'd learned that sometimes the only way to deal with trash is to take it out yourself, and I was finally completely free.